One of the guilty pleasures being in this space is that you will meet some very interesting characters. And I've met some of the most interesting people in the entire world in the aviation space. Okay. Pilots to me are they're just different. Like, pilots view freedom very differently. And depending on who you ask, they tell you, well, I got into flying because of this, or because of this, or because of this. But not this guy. This guy, aviation is truly life. Flying to him is not just something that you pick up and go do on weekends or when time allows. For Alpha Pop, flying is life. He gets up every day thinking about flying. He's built his entire life around flying. And this is why I think he's the most interesting man that I've ever met. And of course, it helps that he flies a very nice airplane, a TBM. I still remember the very first time I met Greg. He sent me an email, and I kid you not, email goes, "Hey, I love what you're doing. I want to build a Draco." I was like, wait, what? He was actually interested in either buying Draco or building one for himself. And I reached out on his behalf to Mike Patey, and Mike Patey straight up said, "Nah, we're not selling, and Draco is just one of a kind." And as you can tell, fast forward 2024, Draco is now a plane that could potentially be mass produced, but we'll keep an eye on that. And here's the thing, many of you have already met Alpha Pop because I've posted several videos featuring him on this channel. But you don't know him like I do, and I want you to know him like I do. So much so that last year I said, hey, listen, I'm gonna come up and spend several days with you because I want to introduce you to the world. I want the world to see your lifestyle and see how you move, how you live. So anyway, he said, sure, come on down. So what you're about to watch is the life of the most interesting man in the world, Greg. Alpha Pop's story started in the state of New York, where he was born. He would later move to Florida, where he grew up, and he pursued a career in tech. But the whole flying bug thing did not bite him until decades later, when he was much older.
For me, when I was a young lad without money and stuff like that, I didn't know about airplanes at all. But I was working at a Sam's Club.
Really?
I worked at Sam's Club. I sold. Computers were kind of new then. This was like 1990 or 91, and computers were just like becoming a thing. Windows was just like starting to.
Fascinating.
There was the Mac, but there was really not that popular back then. Apple wasn't really a thing anymore. And I was in the warehouse. I had an orange vest, and I stood by the computers. But I'd help you with TVs too, or to get a sofa off the rack or whatever it is. And while I was by the computers, I was visited. I was in Rochester, New York, and there was Xerox, Bausch and Lomb, and Kodak.
God bless Kodak.
God bless them all, really. But back then, in 1991, these were the Google, Yahoo, and I know that sounds crazy to think about, but they really were. And they employed a lot of engineers, and these engineers would come into the Sam's Club, and they would talk to me for hours. And from there, I went into a proper master's program for which was more like a trade school that offered masters. And so they took my community college credit as if I had done it as an undergrad. And I got a master's in computer science, and although it was great, my best professors and my most learning was the 2 years of community college.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
He built a successful tech company and then sold it, and now there was nothing left to do but go fly.
So my company was called Infusion, infusion.com. And it was a large-scale bespoke software development company. It would develop sophisticated software for Fortune 50 clients mostly. Our initial client base was Wall Street, financial banks, and financial services. But the problem is scaling, right? The entrepreneur is the idea person, but they're typically bad operators. An entrepreneur, if you want to use that word, is a glue, right? I used to joke, I say, I'm not a neuron, I'm a glial cell, right? People are like, what's a glial cell? A glial cell are things that nourish the neurons, and they provide a lot of the actual weight of your brain, and they hold the neurons together, and they help the neurons connect, right? So glial cells, I think they also feed them and whatever, but they're support cells. Glial cells don't do all the thinking, but they kind of do they bring everybody together so the thinking can happen, is the way that I look at it. When you sell a company and you exit successfully, from the outside, it would appear like it would be like the way you describe it. I used to have this sort of daydream about that. I dreamed that I would leave my office for the last time, right? We had a big office in New York City at the top of a building. It was quite something. I would take the elevator down after giving my farewell address to my people, and I would literally, I don't know why, but I would lean against a car and just exhale, right? And then I would walk the street that I'd walked so many times before, but just as a common man, like that Roman general that just, wanted to turn swords into plowshares and just wanted to farm, didn't want to be a general anymore. I forget who that was, but it's a reference. And I just thought that'll be so great. The weight, will come off of me and all of that. The reality of it is you get very depressed. It's not fun at all. And you'll find that this is really true. You got to realize that whatever the media tells you is inherently false. It's inherently a narrative of some kind, whether it's to promote or to disparage or whatever. You're not getting the truth from anything other than direct experience and people who will tell you the reality. And I spoke to a lot of people that have sold businesses and been successful in every way that you want. It's a depression is what follows. And it was that depression that got me into aviation, not some kind of, oh my gosh, now I can finally be free and fly. It wasn't that. It was if I don't rechannel all of that energy into something that will be, you've got to sink. It's like a grounding rod for lightning. The lightning's going to keep striking. You can either take apart your house or you can shunt it into the ground. That's what the lightning rod. If I need something that's going to take all of this, because once you're geared up to build a global business that is, successful, whatever, you don't come down from that. It's just not like, oh good, well that's over. That's who you are now. And you don't just change your stripes. You're used to. You even get high off it. Solving problems, right? And so I got into aviation because I was starting to take apart myself. I was sitting there. I started programming again, which is what I used to do. I was originally a hobbyist as a programmer. I just liked doing it. And then I turned it into a business. So I started doing that again. But I just wasn't enough. And I'm like, okay, I need something that's really hard, very challenging, that I can't pay for. Right? I didn't get into aviation and buy, an Eclipse, not Eclipse, buy a Praetor 600 or a Phenom 300 or some crazy. And I've had friends that have done that, And now a couple of pilots are going to take me around and I'm going to go to the St. Martin. No, I didn't want to do that. I wanted to fly it myself. I wanted to be the pilot. I wanted to be a commercial pilot, every bit as good as the people that would have flown me. I wanted to be excellent at something again. I wanted something that would take no bullshit, that you couldn't buy your way into. It didn't matter how much money, and that's what I loved about the flying too, particularly taking a type rating for a jet. So you get a jet and you're like, no, it's not for me. I'm going to fly this. And they look at you and they're like, but you're not a professional pilot. Oh yeah, I am. No, you're a rich asshole. And we hate you. You guys come in here and you think because you can afford this fucking thing, you're gonna skip the line, right? And you're just gonna, because you were smart at technology or whatever it is, you're just gonna nail this aircraft. You're gonna kill people and you're an asshole and I hate you. That's what you got. And I fucking loved that. I loved it. And I stopped talking about my business or whatever. As far as they were concerned, I just got so many hours. I was just a commercial pilot and I'm going to be doing this. And they're like, oh, are you going to be? Oh, yeah, I'm going to be a commercial pilot. Yeah, I was going to be it for myself because it is my business. But I never got into, I didn't want to be those guys. And so I got into flying because you can't buy your way to excellence. And everything you were doesn't matter. You got to be good at this now. And the only things that transfer from your old life to this new life of flying airplanes professionally is excellence and caring and perfection and adherence to absolute things, awareness of risk and danger and of reward and husbandry. You can't not be good at anything, at any part of flying an airplane. You cannot be anything less than excellent at every single thing. And it's a demanding, it's like a warrior's art. And if you're a warrior at heart and you're an entrepreneur, as you like to say, or whatever, your art demands that kind of perfection and adherence. And I love it that, if I don't fly for a while, you start to suck again, right? And then you got to keep doing it. So yeah, it was everything that I hoped it was. It also, I failed again, which is really important. You don't want to be like a guy, I've made my money and now I just eat donuts and, ride horses and just do what I like or whatever. That's a terrible person. Oh, God. And it's also terrible. And then some people, they ride it for the rest of their life, right? It's really important. What you'll get to do when you do aviation is you'll fail. You'll flub a check ride. You will make, you will land hard maybe. And you might take out a tire or you might prop strike or you might, hopefully not, but something can happen to you and that will force you to realize that you're not a god and your past success is no indication, doesn't translate. I think it's humbling, and humility is probably the best thing to have, and aviation's the best way to do it.
From a Cirrus, he went up to the Cirrus Jet, the SF-50. From that, he went up to the Honda Jet, and then to a TBM 900, which he flies now.
I started my career with an SR-22T, 383 Alpha Papa. Where are you? I love you. I miss you. I miss you, Alpha Papa. You were my original aircraft. Nothing wrong with this airplane, except for the fact that it is so slow. Wow. I'm sorry, it's just so slow.
To say that a Cirrus is slow.
Once you go turbine, you can't go piston. You can't go back to piston, man. You just can't. Okay. You can't do it. You can't do it. Just to go to Florida, this thing was like 3.5 hour legs from New York. Florida, it's like 3.5 and 3.5. It was like, I loved it when I was learning, but once you get to the point where you're very proficient and you've sort of seen a lot, it's just like, right? Also, chicks don't dig it. They don't. Women, I'm sorry, I don't know if this is right to say. In my experience, women in my life have found it to be very cute, but they typically want to get there a little bit quicker.
Yeah, you're definitely with different classes of women.
Well, if a woman loves you, she'll fly a Cirrus with you. If she loves you. Well, actually, what they love is they like the parachute. Most passengers like the idea of that. And so it's a very fast, cute, nothing wrong with that airplane. Okay. I just think there's something wrong with people that fly with gear that doesn't come in. I just feel I'm sorry,
the entire population there.
I was one of them.
All of this happened within a few years. And now fast forward to 2023, here's where our story began. The plan was to take off from Atlanta, Georgia, where Greg actually flew in to pick me up. And then we're going to go up to the West Coast where he's based at an air park and spend some time there. Greg flies a beautiful TBM 900. This is a speed machine, fast, practical, and you don't need a type rating. Flying the TBM was a marvel. And I'm sure Greg is used to this because he flies this thing hundreds of hours every single year.
That was dope.
Atlanta, Georgia to Wyoming is a stretch even for the TBM. So first we're gonna make a stop in Omaha. Hey guys, so I'm here in an FBO in Indiana, empty as hell. So it's a pretty long flight. Took off from Atlanta, Georgia, and We're stopping here in Indiana and should have a straight shoot, straight west from Indiana to Wyoming. I'm tired, but I'm glad I got some time, more time in the TBM today. How's your day so far? And where are we actually?
We had a presidential candidate, a president, and a TFR. Did you notice the big yellow dome around the airport where I picked you up?
Yeah,
That was my bad. They had 130 knot headwinds, and it's a long day of flying. And after a long day of flying, I like sweet tarts. If an FBO is kind enough to give them to me. Yeah, it's a lot. This is 3 legs, each one over about 3 hours. It's a lot. But soon we'll be in Shangri-La in Alpine Air Park, and we'll descend into the valley, and we'll be there.
Amen.
So yeah, it's a lot. Even in a fast airplane, it's a lot.
But then this is your lifestyle. You go wherever the wind takes you, right?
Yeah, it's nice to be able to go where you like, when you like. But it takes a lot to get here. It takes a lot to stay here. It's a lot of energy. But it's very rewarding. And I also was getting a little bit rusty. If you don't fly for a while, it's an atrophying skill. It really is. You find yourself, pausing, and a little bit. That never feels good. So I'm kind of glad to get all the practice back. I'm back.
After our one stop, it's now time to get back on the horse and get on this 2-3 hour flight to Wyoming. We got to the air park where Alpha Pop lives at dark 30. No kidding. I could not see a thing out here because it is all mountains. And I've got to tell you, this is one of the hidden gems in the aviation world. Alpine Air Park, surrounded by mountains, steep approach, beautiful homes out here. See, tonight I also found out that Alpha Pop is not just the most interesting man, but he's actually a pretty darn good pilot. I think landing in an airstrip like this takes guts and certainly experience. Sweet home, it is freezing out here. We're just gonna park the airplane outside, and in the morning we'll come back and get all of our stuff. We just arrived here at Alpine Air Park. This is Mr. Wonderful's hangar here, the squeakiest, cleanest hangar space I've ever seen, really. But it's late as hell. Right now we're just gonna settle in and see you in the morning. It is a beautiful morning at Alpine Air Park, and before I get started on anything, I want to give you a nice tour of this air park. Alpine is known but also unknown. It's a pilot living community where you practically park your airplane in your hangar or right outside of your home. And all these homes are pretty much hangar spaces with rooms attached to them. But of course, this is where the most interesting man in the world calls home. Okay, gonna show you more of Alpine here. Again, this is a very unique community. There are air parks all around the country. I know that if you're not a pilot or you're not familiar with flying, you may not know this, but you can absolutely live in a community where you practically fly your airplane in and out. And I see a dog coming towards me here. But you can also get to meet some of the neighbors. There are all kinds of homes out here. You can see someone walking their dogs. How you doing? And when you think about the caliber of people who live here, one, what you get out in Alpine is just nature. I mean, my God, these mountains just breathtaking. And it's been snowing here, as you can see. This is one part of the country where you expect the winter to be wintering. We're in the middle of March or early March right now, so you expect some snow. But it's just stunning to call this home. Again, it can be on the pricier side, but obviously you don't have to be all the way in Wyoming to be at an air park. But this one in particular, just the way it was cultivated from the beginning. Think of Alpine as somebody's dream. Literally, somebody cooked this up and said, hey, I'm going to build a community, right? With, a bunch of pilots where you can fly in and out. And you can also live just like you live in any other house or neighborhood. And from what I understand, also at Alpine, you can potentially buy land and build your own house. Now, most of this land is already well developed, as you can see. But this is a dream for a lot of pilots. Not all pilots. I think this is the end of our road here. Not all pilots dream of living in an air park, because guess what? It does come with some downside. A place like Alpine, you have to also curate your lifestyle to be here, because it is a remote area. Not just in this part of the country, but the state itself. You may not find a lot of things close or close by. So just like you would have in a city or any other city or suburbs, if you live in the suburbs, you have cars where you can drive to places, go to town, go get your groceries. But to get in and out of this particular community, generally you fly in. As I said, either depending on which runway that you're facing, one has a very steep approach because you are literally flying down the mountains, and one is more lenient. Now, the one thing that's also unique about this air park is that you have a sizable runway, close to 6,000 feet, and with that, you can bring in much, bigger airplanes. And if you look ahead right there, that's your gate in. So this is a gated community, and everyone gets, I guess, a key fob or remotes to get in and out. So you do have homes that are outside of the air park, but man, this is just unique. And depending on when you see this video, I'll be giving you a tour of this beautiful home to my left. Man, I'm just breathtaking away with these views out here. See, there's really not much to do in Wyoming except we've got some skis and a rifle. No, I'm kidding. There's quite a bit you can do out here. For one, you can eat some good food, or maybe just enjoy the mountain views.
So in Alpine, it's not Jackson, it's Alpine. Maybe it'll be Jackson one day. But we're going to the Yankee Doodle Cafe, which will have a coffee that Mike Ojo desperately needs. Mike Ojo needs a great amount of care and feeding, it turns out, particularly in cold climates. So we're taking a break from airplanes so that we can get him the coffee that he wants.
Yeah, my coach is very high maintenance, is what he's trying to say.
All right, so this is Alpine. Are you ready?
Yes,
here we go.
Let's do it.
It's Alpine, my town, and that's it.
No.
We got the RV park there, which is actually a pretty good one, and we have the Yankee Doodle Cafe, where firearm carrying is encouraged. They are big fans of the Second Amendment. So
right. What are the laws in the entire state regarding?
It's open carry, and people are very feel very strongly about that. And you'll see when you look at some of the signage in there, you're going to get an impression. You'll even see people carrying.
Okay, That's like being in Georgia.
Anyway, Yankee Doodle Cafe and Rivers Coffee Company, where we're going to get you an exquisite cup of coffee. Also very much loved by my girlfriend, Archana. So,
okay, let's do it.
Let's do it.
On our sit down at the restaurant, I try to ask Greg some personal questions, just to get to know him a little better. His philosophy on life, money, family, freedom, which is something he's very passionate about. Freedom. I think this is just common around all pilots. We think of freedom on a whole different level than the average
We
person.
could have brought ours.
Yes. So, and speaking of, I know it's because I generally don't get into like politics and whatnot on the channel, but these are all personal stuff too. Like, I know I practically grew up in a more liberal, like I lived in New York and then California, and then I moved to the state of Georgia, and I remember how much of a shock it was, and I think I learned very early when I went to Georgia that good guys also carry guns. I literally grew up thinking guns are bad guys. But I'm curious what your story is with GUNs, as we call it in the house.
I started the same way. I had the same feelings. I was, I was like, you'd call me a classical liberal. I never even imagined the need to actually have it. You're taught that it's this big liability. That if you've got it, well, then it's going to be used, and it could be dangerous to people or whatever. If a kid finds it, and there's validity to that. But the reality is how you assess the world you really live in, and how you assess the professionalism and ability of the people that are supposed to protect you.
Right.
And it's two parts for me. One, I've got a lodge in Alaska, so there you carry when you're in the outback of Alaska, because you would potentially die if you didn't. You have literal monsters there. Bears that can stand 8-9 feet tall. I mean, it's like a literal monster. Go look at these things. You can surprise them. And there's a lot of hazards, that justify having it. In fact, but you never want to use it.
That's the thing.
But civilly, I think that there's been a real erosion in trust. I mean, certainly defund the police, or pick any sort of initiative that involves. I mean, the question is, do you really think you'd be protected? Do you really think that if it came down to it, do you trust yourself more than you would trust an authority to be there in the time that they need to be, and to protect in the manner that you need to be? And shouldn't that be you? I think that, it's an evolution and it's a wisdom. And wisdom is neither right or wrong. It's personal, based on your own experiences. And I think when you're younger and, liberal as we both are or were, but I still consider myself that way, you trust yourself very little. You trust authorities and people that should know better very much. And as you evolve and you gain experience, you realize they don't know anything. They're not there for you. Their motivations are not, what they say. And you start to realize you rely on yourself more and more, and you do it in different ways. You start your own business instead of working for somebody. You decide to acquire skills, being a pilot or being able to handle a firearm responsibly or whatever. You start to realize that these people don't have the skills and they don't have the knowledge and they don't have your best interest in mind, and you can trust yourself for everything, ranging from personal protection to flying an airplane to taking care of your family. Pilot in command of life in airplanes.
Yep.
Right? You're the pilot of your own life.
I know for many of you who have been introduced to Greg in the last couple of years, you've probably seen him as this flamboyant character that the camera loves, but there's a lot to this man than just talking about airplanes. He is, in fact, the most interesting pilot that I've ever met. And if you want to follow more of his journey, make sure you tune into his channel at Alpha Pop here on YouTube. Go subscribe and show him some love. Thank you all so much for watching. This is one of a kind. I loved making this project, and I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please give this video a thumbs up, and make sure you subscribe to Mojo Grip. Share, comment, and just spread the love. And if If you're ready to jumpstart your pilot career, make sure you check out my flight school. Look up flightacademy.com. We can train you from zero all the way to your commercial pilot's license. Again, that's lookupflightacademy.com. Come in, get a tour. We'll take you up, and I hope to see you soon.